Before we talk about changing habits, healing patterns, or stepping into new seasons, we have to start with one foundational skill: self awareness. Self awareness is not about overanalyzing yourself, it's not about finding everything that's wrong. It's about learning to observe yourself with honesty and compassion. Because you cannot change what you are not aware of. What self awareness really is: self awareness is the ability to notice your thoughts, emotions, reactions, and behaviors without immediately judging them. It is recognizing what activates you, what drains you, what patterns repeat, what environments bring out different versions of you. Awareness creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you regain choice. Why we avoid self awareness? Many people avoid self awareness because it feels uncomfortable, not because it's harmful, but because it removes denial. When you slow down enough to notice, you may realize you've been operating in survival. You've been saying yes when you mean no. You've been living from expectations rather than alignment. Avoidance keeps us functioning. Awareness invites us to transform. Awareness versus self criticism. This is important because self awareness is not the same as self criticism. Self criticism says, "Why am I like this?" Awareness says, "This is what's happening." You don't shame yourself into growth. You create safety within yourself to, so growth can occur. When awareness is paired with compassion, healing accelerates. Awareness and identity. When you lack self awareness, you start to identify with your reactions. And what that looks like is you say, "I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I am bad at relationships." But self awareness teaches you to say, "I'm noticing anxiety, I'm experiencing overwhelm, I'm learning new relational skills." You are not your emotions. You are not your coping strategies. You are not your past experiences. Awareness separates who you are from what you experience. Practicing self awareness on a daily. Self awareness is built through small daily pauses, checking in with your body, noticing emotional shifts, reflecting instead of reacting. You don't need perfection, you need presence. Awareness doesn't demand change immediately, it invites understanding first. As you move forward, I invite you to stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What am I becoming aware of?" Because clarity always comes before change. So here's a prompt I want you to try to journal. What is something in my life that keeps repeating, and what might it be trying to show me? Whenever we journal, we slow down our overthinking process. And if you're like me, I've been down that road, overthinking. It increases anxiety, we feel overwhelmed, and we just go. But once we're able to slow down and write out or journal, we become more and more aware of what our thoughts are saying, what emotions are happening for us, and what behavioral patterns are showing us. And we can always connect what behaviors are showing up and link it to what thoughts you're having, and also link it to what emotion you're experiencing. Oftentimes, we're not always aware of the emotion that's happening, but we can pinpoint what behavior is occurring when we don't know what emotion is showing. So here's how to do that. If you sit and ask yourself, "What am I feeling right now? Am I feeling sad, anger, frustration? What does it feel like in my body?" what does that look like for me? How does it manifest itself? And sometimes if you're not able to pinpoint what that is, start with your thoughts. Where are your thoughts going? If you slow down and take a second and take a pause, you would recognize what thought patterns are happening. Are you thinking about that job application? Are you thinking about that presentation? Are you thinking about what someone said to you that upset you? Or are you thinking about the fact that because someone did recognize you, you felt dismissed or disrespected? Those thoughts are like collecting data. They help you to understand what emotions are showing up, but they also help you to understand what behaviors are also manifesting. Because of our thoughts, an emotion is sparked. And because of that emotion, it also pushes us to act in a certain way. Think about it. When you're angry, there are thoughts that are fueling the anger. How dare she say that to me? I feel disrespected. I feel hurt. I feel dismissed. I feel not recognized. Those might be thoughts that might be going through your head, or the things that they said, or you're playing the scenario over and over again in your head, and that is fueling the emotion anger. And when that starts to fuel, what might happen is your response to anger kicks in. That's the behavior. For some people's reaction is they shut down. For others, they're ready to fight, either physically or verbally with their mouths. And they will go on and on and on. So when I've talked about patterns, I'm talking about what patterns keep reoccurring in your life. Are they patterns where you constantly shut down and don't feel like you have a voice or are able to express yourself? Are they patterns that continue to show up in ways where you're more verbally aggressive or more physically aggressive, where every time it's a fight with you, where every time you're agitated, irritated, or just not nice? Those patterns inform you a lot. I've used anger, but oftentimes anxiety or other emotions can show up in overeating, using substances and other drugs to suppress the emotion. We are avoidant people. We don't like to feel our emotions. We like to suppress them and act like they don't exist. Becoming self-aware of your patterns and those behaviors help you to start to navigate what you need to work on and what you need to change. So if you find that you are overeating or always stressed out and always going to sleep or always just overeating, it is a space for you to be aware of and navigate in terms of what do I need to do differently when it comes to these patterns or these behaviors that keep repeating themselves over and over again. Self-awareness helps you to recognize the thoughts, the emotions, and the behavior. And you are able to recognize what's wrong. Once you recognize what's wrong, then change can happen. But it first comes with self-awareness. Self-awareness is really also the foundation of emotional intelligence. That is how you're able to be more emotionally intelligent. And these skills help you with relationships, at your job, with organization, as a leader, in your family, and in anywhere in life. Self-awareness is really important. So I'm going to talk about the journaling prompt again. I asked you to stop and take a second to reflect on what is something in your life that keeps repeating, and what might it be trying to show you? Like, what is this pattern trying to show me? What is this thing that keeps repeating trying to show me? Oftentimes our emotions are trying to communicate something to us. Emotions are there for a reason. I know they feel uncomfortable. I know they feel messy. I know they feel just something like we don't want to deal with. We just always want to avoid it. But they're there to show you that something is wrong. They're trying to show you something. So I want you to take a second and pause and listen to what your emotions are trying to tell you, what your patterns are trying to tell you. It's not just your emotions. Sometimes you're able to recognize what your emotions are trying to tell you, and other times you're able to recognize what your patterns are trying to show you. Being self-aware of those patterns help you to know how to change them. So take a second, pause, reflect, take a moment back. And the reason why I say take a moment back is because our thoughts are always influenced by other things in life. By the social media scrolling that's happening, by the TV show that's playing, by the phone conversation that's going on, by what's on the news, by what's on the media. It is often influenced by a lot of things. So when I say take a second to reflect, I mean retreat back into a space that feels quiet, into a space that feels safe, and into a space that feels comfortable. And once you retreat back, allow your thoughts to flow. Notice what is coming up, notice the discomfort, notice the emotions that are happening, and notice what your body is trying to do. Sometimes your body is really trying to block because it's trying to protect you. So it doesn't want you to remember that memory. It doesn't want you to acknowledge that emotion. It doesn't want you to write what you're feeling because it feels raw to feel your emotions or to experience what you're experiencing. So you have to do this in a place that feels safe enough for you to do it. Either journaling with a pen and a paper, journaling on your phone, but either way, find your process of how to recognize what patterns are repeating, what the thought patterns are saying to you, what the emotions are saying to you, what the behavior is saying to you. Once we are aware of these reoccurring patterns in our lives, we will be able to recognize that change needs to happen here. Once you acknowledge that change needs to happen, we're able to identify the steps and the coping skills to be able to change either the behavior, change the experience, or change whatever is going on. But it starts with self-awareness, because that is the only way that we can recognize what is needed to change is when you are aware of those thoughts, those feelings, and those patterns. No one can do it for you. You know the patterns that are recurring in your life. Let's start today being more self-aware.